G'day, ZiggyD here, and I realised I've been doing a number of gear checks for viewers now over the past few weeks, especially since doing my recent strafe builds and things like that, which I'm pretty keen on doing these. I actually enjoy the process of looking at people's gear and their goals and all that sort of thing, and coming up with a few upgrades for them that will be cost effective and be able to help them enjoy the game a bit more. But I got to thinking that maybe then more than just helping the one person that I'm actually doing the gear check for, if I do a bit of recording and try to explain the process a little bit of doing the actual gear checks, I'm going to be able to help more than just that one person. So this is a trial run essentially of me doing viewer gear checks, so we'll see how this goes. If people enjoy it and get something from it and it goes smoothly and everything, then maybe we'll do more in the future. So today we have a gear check for Kalanar, the Demon Hunter, and he says that he's just started watching some of my content and has been pretty inspired, I guess, by the CinderStrafe build in particular, and he's keen to test that out, but he's not too sure whether his current gearing setup is going to be suitable for it. So he's made a few other notes as well. He says that he does have a gem for his Manticore, which he didn't say what it was. I'm gonna assume for this gear check that it's the 70% gem, which is what most people will have. And looking at his other gems, I'd say he's probably got a 70% one there. He's also said that he does have Lacunis for the extra 12% move speed, and that he's looking into his own personal, what he thinks will be a good upgrade is the Inner's Favor, which is the belt there. So we'll use that knowledge and his motivations combined to take a look at his current gearing situation, any deficits and things like that, and also any slight tweaks he might have to make in order to make this work with the CinderStrafe build. The good news is he's geared up for a pretty traditional style Demon Hunter build, which it doesn't take too many adjustments to get from that to a CinderStrafe build, so it shouldn't be too hard for us to get from that point A to point B. So immediately, the first thing that jumps out to me from Kalanar's profile is his quiver. Now this is quite a good rare quiver, but Deadman's Legacies, since this recent patch and since things have been a bit quiet on the auction house lately, they have gotten ridiculously cheap. And you can get a Deadman's Legacy for 100k that will have stats that overall are going to be better than this rare quiver. So I'll even bring up the auction house here, and I've done a quick search. So looking for 180 dexterity. His current dexterity in his quiver is 200, which is quite high, but we'll just look at 180 here and balance it out with some more survivability. Now Deadman's Legacy also has a very high base vitality roll, and it can roll a low attack speed, which is actually good for CinderStrafe because it will stop you from chewing up that hatred too fast, and it has a high base crit chance. Now since we're doing this for the CinderStrafe, and CinderStrafe doesn't have a hatred generator, the skill bonus on the Deadman's Legacy is largely irrelevant, which actually makes it a lot cheaper as well. So searching for 180 minimum dexterity one here, we can get for 100k a Deadman's Legacy with 10% crit chance, low attack speed, decent hatred regen. 1.3 is a good roundabouts to look at, so you can sort of compare it to the one I've got equipped over there. So for around 100k, I recommend going for a Deadman's Legacy. If you have a little bit more to spend, then you can probably upgrade the dexterity there a bit without it costing too much more. So for a minimum of 190, you can start moving to the 250k range to get a good Deadman's Legacy. So the next thing I want to look at is we're going to need to change a few things around, and sometimes when we need to do that, we need to look at where we can take one stat, because often when you want to increase something, you're going to have to decrease something else. Now Kalanar has a ridiculously high crit chance for his actual, his level of gearing. 50% crit chance is higher than my crit chance for reference, and I obviously want a lot of crit chance for strafing because it is quite important for the Night Stalker procs. So he has very high crit chance, so if we're going to be reducing anything, it's going to be that crit chance a little bit. He's also got very high life, which is far more than I have. I believe I have a bit less than 30k, or maybe a little bit more than 30k, but he's got almost 40k. I'm not necessarily too fussed on trying to reduce that and put it somewhere else, but if we happen to lose a little bit of life, that's not a big issue there. So the first thing I'm going to look at is his helmet. Now, the point of CinderStrafe as a build is to be able to farm low monster powers extremely quickly, to get a lot of loot really quickly, and a lot of Paragon experience. So Endariel's Visage is a good helmet in itself, and it's a great helmet for trying to tackle harder content, but for just farming, it has the biggest issue with it is that it doesn't have a socket, and it's very expensive to get one with a socket. So Endariel's Visage does has that base crit chance and also attack speed, which does hurt the build as well. I'm using a Mempo of Twilight on my current setup, and I actually do want to change that as well. So I think the helmet we're going to be looking at is either a Natalia's helmet, which will give us that extra 130 dexterity from the 3-set bonus, since he's already got 2 Natalia's pieces here. So getting a Natalia's helmet, even just an average one, is going to give him a pretty decent boost to DPS, as well as being able to socket that ruby. However, we don't need to look at just a Natalia's helmet as well. We could also look at rare helmets, and the fact that we can lose this 4.5% crit chance without really negatively impacting the build too much means that you can get a pretty decent rare helmet for fairly cheaply, because the crit chance is the thing that really drives the price up. So feel free to look at either rare helmets or the actual Natalia's helmets there to be replacing the Endariel's Visage, and try and spend as much money as you can on getting a decent ruby for that Paragon leveling. Remember that more Paragon levels in the immediate future means a lot more better drops in the long-term future. Now, just one more note I want to make about this sort of the way that he's geared his crit chance and crit damage at the moment is even with the 70% extra crit damage in there, we've got 300% crit damage, right? And 50% crit chance is way higher than the sort of around the 10-to-1 scaling, where crit chance and crit damage give an equal benefit each. So at the moment, every crit chance that he's added, and he's probably spent a fair bit of money trying to get that extra crit chance, a lot of those points aren't really giving the DPS increase that a bit of extra crit damage could give. So while we're losing some crit chance, changing things around a little bit, he's not actually going to be losing that much DPS, and if you can pick up some crit damage anywhere, then that's also going to actually be increasing the DPS. Now, one thing that Kalanar also mentioned was that he was looking at getting an Inner's Favor, but he said that they felt really expensive. Now, this entirely depends on the extra stat you're trying to get. The Inner's Favor has one random stat affix roll that you can choose, and if you don't try and get anything specific on that, then it's actually not too expensive to get one. So I'll bring up the auction house here again. And just for a base Inner's Favor, we're looking around the one just got added for 550, but around the 600k there. So we've got the dodgy barbarian stats and things like that that aren't really going to help us at all. But that's not actually such a big deal. I remember, I think my first Inner's Favor was actually a gold fund, and I'm just wearing a magic fund now. One just incidental, like not a huge deal. The stat you get on that. If you get a high base holy damage, and just get some ones with alright armor and things like that, it's really not a big deal, because Inner's Favor as its base item is just a really solid set piece, and that's kind of why it's so cheap just by itself without looking at that extra stat. The fact that there's only a small room for variance on the belt means that putting Ore Resist in that slot, while that would be nice to have Ore Resist there, is going to really jack the price up. So let's just chuck Ore Resist in there without typing it, and instantly jumps up to 3 million. That's probably really low, or 13 Ore Resist, so nothing, barely even worth it. So if you've got a bit of extra money to play with, you can put something in there, maybe a single resist, although that could be quite expensive because of the monks. Just put something in there, it really doesn't matter, or just go for the cheapest one you can find. Now, I do feel like looking at your current set that the Inner's Favor is going to give you a nice little boost of DPS. Your current one has good dexterity, so it's going to be a bit of a toss-up. The main DPS boost from Inner's Favor is actually that holy damage. I think people don't pay enough attention to that holy damage, but what that does is it multiplies against your base non-elemental damage. So while you have a poison damage manticore here, the base non-elemental damage and anything from your jewelry, like the 18 minimum damage here, is going to be increased by that elemental damage. So I'd say go ahead with your plan to get an Inner's Favor, because it's a really good piece, and although your rare belts are decent now, losing that magic find and just getting whatever Inner's Favor is probably going to be an upgrade for you, but more importantly, it's going to set you up for some future upgrades. Now, you mentioned that you already have Lacunis for the extra 12% move speed, and that's fine. Lacunis are fine. However, to get Lacunis with main stat or crit chance, it gets really expensive. So you might actually be better off instead saving up around 10 million and getting the Inner's Temperance. So you get that extra 130 dex set bonus, and Inner's Temperance as pants are also really, really good. So if you get to that point where you have 10 million, I don't know what your budget is exactly, but if you get to that point where you have around 10 or 11 million saved up to get your favorite and your Temperance at once, then you can ditch the Lacunis and just pick up, well, you've already got a pretty decent rare bracer here you can throw on. Now, just as a general piece of advice, I see that Kalanar stacking a bit of magic find. I don't think this is incidental. I think this has been intentional by the fact that we've got like a 20% magic find roll here. And the problem with magic find is that unless you're to the point where your current monster power you're farming as efficiently as possible, to the point where any more DPS you add doesn't actually make your runs any faster, then it's not worth stacking magic find until you're getting to that point. And even if you're getting to that point, then it might be worth just stepping up one extra monster power. However, with Strafe, I like to stick around monster power 0 on Act 3 and not stack magic find until you're getting around the 100k DPS mark, which, looking at this here, with the ruby, with the emerald in the manticore, I'm going to say probably around 88 or 86 or something like that. So not quite towards the 100k mark. So don't be afraid to lose that magic find, because you're going to get an increase in farming speed, and that's going to outweigh the magic find. So the final thing that I need to mention, which is actually pretty important for the build, is that you do need some pickup radius. Now, Demon Hunters generally don't stack any pickup radius, and actually getting pickup radius on a few specific set pieces is really expensive. Like getting pickup radius on the Inner's Favors, for example, will jack the price up to around 7 million, and same thing on Temperance and a few other pieces like that. Especially if you do get a Mempo of Twilight, oh sorry, not a Mempo of Twilight, a set of Vile Wards. I'm trying to remember the name there. If you're trying to get a set of Vile Wards as well, which I think you might have mentioned in your message, getting pickup radius on that is very expensive, because everyone wants pickup radius on their Vile Wards. So if you're going to stick with a rare shoulders, which I actually recommend for a while, try and get some rare shoulders pretty similar to this. This is pretty decent as far as you can go for rare shoulders for a Demon Hunter. Get something like this and get some pickup radius on that. You don't necessarily need to go for 7 pickup radius, 5 pickup radius will be fine, and it's probably cheaper to get 5 pickup radius on 3 different pieces rather than 7 on 2. So the first spot to get your pickup radius is on the actual shoulders. Now the second spot is, I mentioned earlier that set items and legendaries are very expensive for getting pickup radius. However, there are exceptions to that rule, and those exceptions are the Natalia's set. I mentioned earlier that Demon Hunters usually don't worry about pickup radius at all. Natalia's set pieces with pickup radius really aren't that much more expensive than without. I think most Demon Hunters see that as a junk stat on Natalia's, and they'd rather see that without. I think my Natalia's set pieces at the moment do have pickup radius on them, possibly even both. I'll bring up the Diablo client here and we'll have a look. So yeah, I've got the boots here with pickup radius of 5 yards, and chest piece here with pickup radius of 7 yards. Because I'm using the Vile Wards, I couldn't afford to get pickup radius on that, and I just got some extra defensive stats instead. So I'm actually getting all of my pickup radius at the moment from the Natalia's set, so I got 5 and 7. Even if you can only get 5 and 5, that'll be plenty of pickup radius for the build. So try and get that if you can, and if you're going to be switching your Embrace anyway, then you can switch over to the extra bonus crit chance for Strafe, which will help with the Night Stalker procs as well. So let's just go back over the main points just to reiterate. Deadman's Legacy, cheap as you can get. A Natalia's helmet, Natalia's sight, or a rare helmet. Just make sure you're getting the socket. Don't be afraid to lose the crit chance. You've got plenty of crit chance. Pickup radius possibly on your shoulders if you're sticking with rares. If you're going for Vile Wards, ignore the pickup radius in that slot. Get your actual pickup radius on the Natalia's set pieces if you can, because it's probably the cheapest spot for you to get. And as for the Inner's set, get the belt and pants at the same time if you can, and don't be afraid to drop the Lacunis if you do get Temperance. And I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully you've found this helpful, Kalanar, and hopefully other players who are maybe considering gearing up for CinderStrafe, or maybe just the process of gearing up and looking for problems in the current gear setup. Maybe just watching that process has helped you as well. I'd love to hear in the comments whether you did find this helpful or what you got out of this, so I can know if this is something I want to do more of in the future. And if you do want to get a gear check done, and you are a Demon Hunter probably to start off with, then feel free to send me a message with a link to your profile page, like this page here. You can send me a D3 up page as well if you want. That can be helpful as well. And like a dot point list of your goals, what you want to do, and things that you've been thinking about, and things like that. So that's it for today. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.